Olympics in 2016, 38 US athletes from the team had TUEs. That's, of course, therapeutic use exemptions. Okay, that means that they can dope whatever they need to dope with. Of them, 10 won medals. Okay, so that's a pretty good strike rate for that. It is just over 25%. 48 UK athletes had TUEs, 14 of them won medals. Okay, so when we're talking about clean sports, it doesn't really go around. Isolt, why are we singling out the Chinese? We know they dope, but why is the whole world, well, not the whole world, but certain countries saying China, China, China?
I suppose there's a multitude of factors. The first one is the volume and the fact that they're all involved in one sport, because obviously it becomes very obviously a systematic doping or a doping program issue. The other difficulty we have here is, as we all know from the recent case in Russia, we have a medication that is a heart medication. So, and none of these people, if they're suggesting contamination, you have to query, firstly, how they all managed to get contaminated, how no one else in the same facility that was staying in the hotel was contaminated, how they were contaminated in a hotel, and how this medication got into their systems. So all those queries make it obviously, it's a very clear issue of something is happening here in the background. So let's not suggest this is a contamination issue. The timing issue as well, I think it galls people, and unfortunately, the fact that it was the Chinese probably does to an extent add to it, in the sense of there was a huge gap and lapse in the ability to go into different countries and test during COVID. We all know where COVID originated, and I know that seems silly and petty because obviously it isn't the fault of the Chinese, but there is this mentality where you're kind of going, so you guys took this as an opportunity to dope, and just because an amount in your system is small doesn't mean you haven't been doping for an extended period or timing it well. And I think when it comes into one sport, one group of athletes in particular, then it's like cycling. People look at it and go, teams are doping, and there's something really, I think it's worse than thinking one individual is bad, because you also are going, you're not blaming necessarily all of the athletes, but you're going, the culture in this is rotten. We saw what that did to cycling when they had the revival tour. I'm not going to do my bad French accent, but we've seen what systematic doping in a sport does to a sport. And we understand it brings a level of just real distrust and dislike. We have seen prior to this that athletes, other swimmers have had issues with, in particular, male Chinese swimmer in the past. So there have been difficulties in that area, and suspicion that, they have maybe had a light touch in terms of bans or in terms of enforcement.
Same with the Americans. I mean, American swimmers have failed for this drug as well.
It's across the board, but I think there is something particularly galling when you think of the timing, when you think of the suggestion of it being anything other than systematic doping is just a bit, it sticks in the throat. I also think, yes, every nation is great to pile on when these things happen, but I think it's maybe because of the fact that we're in an Olympic year as well. It's just a particular, when these stories come out so close to an Olympics, it's a great opportunity for everyone to jump on it. And we're like, when you look at the UK are always great to criticise, and all you can think of immediately was the cycling in the UK, the cleanest Olympics in the UK,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's 2012 has turned out to be the dirtiest ever Olympics, and I mean, we only tested a certain amount of them as well. We do know a lot of the tests that were taken, the samples that were taken. We even know the batches that were taken. We even know the athletes. Well, by the numbers, we know the athletes who were tested, what sports and so on. They were stored in basically a refrigeration truck with people's sandwiches and food, and they all got spoiled. Not the sandwich and food, but the samples, because they were left out in the sun. I mean,
it's a choice about what you want the result to be.
Well, that's it. And it is funny because, as was told to us on Capital Sports by a former UCAD doping supremo, is that most of the samples, I think it's 1/3 of the samples that were there were all from UK athletes. They were collected, brought together and put in there, and in all sports. So it seemed very, very coincidental.
Let's not overlook the fact that what these athletes have done is, there's no question that this is systematic and throughout that team, but it may be across other teams as well, and other sports, in the sense of it may be similar to what happened in Russia. Because let's not pretend it wasn't a team-wide national doping program, state-sponsored doping. But I think we'd be very naive to think that there wasn't something very similar happening in the East.